Hi guys, this is the second class for the Musicians Duet Better program. Last class we did talk about the different types of percussion instruments and how they can all be used in a band or an orchestra, and how each instrument sort of has its own part which brings the entire ensemble together. So if you don't know me already, by the way, I am Ahana and I'm a rising senior. I'm also a Girl Scout, and I will be teaching you more about how to play instruments and really understanding the origins of all these instruments. I've been playing music since I was 10, so I really like music, and I would love for everyone else to enjoy it as much as I do. I also think that because of Corona, we have so much free time just staying home at our houses, and it's summer, so we should use all that time to do something fun. So what I had planned for today's class was to make shakers. So shakers originated from Africa, and they basically made it by putting in different types of materials into cylindrical shapes. So for this one, I used a can. I wrapped it in pretty gold duct tape, and this is how you play it. You just shake it. It's a lot like a maraca, except maracas are filled in with different types of materials and they're like in a different form, but it's close to the same thing. So I do want to show you how to make these, but before I do get into that, I want to have a quick review of what went on in the first class. So that was also a percussion class, and I basically introduced all of you guys to the different types of instruments that percussion engulfs. Percussion is one of those categories where there are so many different types of instruments that if you're a percussionist, you basically know how to play the majority of the instruments. And it's much more rhythmic and very precise. So the percussion is sort of what keeps the entire band or orchestra together. It's the bass, and it's necessary so the entire ensemble does not fall apart. Because if the bass is wrong, then everything that goes on top of it will start to fall apart. So I do want to review the instruments that I introduced to you guys, and I do have some of the instruments right now, and I'll just play them and sort of teach you what I already know. It's just a few. So yeah, I will get into that. Hi guys, I am back with a lot of instruments, and I decided to quickly sample all of these for you guys. So the first instrument that I do have is a tambourine. So an interesting fact about the tambourine is that it is actually made of a lot of mini cymbals. And they basically attach two cymbals together to make a really unique sound. And the entire tambourine is made out of mini cymbals. So that's a really cool fun fact. So basically how you do play this is you look for the hole on the edge of the tambourine, and you put your index finger of your dominant hand through the hole. And then with your non-dominant hand, you just hit the tambourine on it, and you lay it flat. And you do want to hit the tambourine on this part of your hand, not your fingertips, because that would make a sort of uneven sound. So if you can hear the difference. Whereas this is much more, it sounds better and much more accurate rhythmically. And percussion is all about rhythm, so it is important to hit it on the bottom part of your palm. So yeah, this is actually a very cool instrument. I think it is pretty underrated in comparison to the other percussion instruments, but that is just my opinion. Yeah, I do think that this is a very good instrument, and it does bring the band together. For example, songs like Jingle Bell Rock or a lot of Christmas songs do use the tambourine, and it is very effective. So I do recommend playing that if you do ever get the chance to. And the next instrument that I have to show is actually a cymbal. Now this is not what a cymbal generally looks like. It is usually on a drum set, or it is on its own stand. It's not usually just hanging by a yarn and some tape, but I didn't really have the chance to buy a stand or anything because it's very, very expensive, but I did want to show you guys how this sounds like, so I will try my best to replicate that exactly. So I will just try to hold the cymbal by the yarn and show you guys the different types of sounds that you can make with it. So I wanted to show you guys the two different mallets that I do have. I have this yarn covered head mallet, and I have this sort of wood head mallet. The difference between these two is actually very prominent. This yarn head mallet is much more airy. It has a lot of, it's very broad sounding and it projects to the audience better. Whereas this sort of wood sounding is much more like, it's very hard on the ears because it's so loud, but once you play it with a band, it sounds like it's supposed to be there, and it brings the entire, you know, thing together. It brings the entire ensemble together. I do think that this one has a much more dramatic effect, which as this one has much of a more, it's used for like fast-paced music much more often, but it's not always used for those purposes. But these two mallets do have very, very different types of sounds. So I'll try playing the cymbal with this type of mallet just to show you guys the difference. Okay, so let me hold it still really quick first. So yeah, that is what it sounds like. It sort of rings in your ear, and the way you stop a cymbal is by holding the tip of it, or like the sides of the cymbal, just to stop it from vibrating so much. But sometimes your band director might tell you to just like let it ring and sort of get that echoey feel of the cymbal inside the music, which is very prominent. Another example I will show you of this different type of mallet. So I will show you guys the difference. Hopefully you guys can hear that through the video, but when I play with this mallet, it's much more high pitched, and it sounds like something is breaking almost, whereas this one has a much more wide approach to the piece. Hopefully you can hear this through the video, but trust me, these two different mallets have very, very different types of sounds, and you don't just play these with the cymbal. There are a lot of instruments that you can use these two mallets for, including like different types of like glockenspiel or like the xylophone. You can use different types of mallets for different types of sounds, and it's very noticeable when you play it with the entire band, and it helps control the mood of the entire ensemble. So moving on from that, I do have another instrument that I would like to introduce. These are called sand blocks, I'm pretty sure, and you can actually make these at home as well. You take a big chunk of wood and you wrap sandpaper around it, except for like one side, just so you can grip it better and it's easier to hold. And the way you play these, you need two of them. You just rub them against each other. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I will play it anyways. So yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's not your typical percussion instrument, and it can be used in a lot of different songs, but we actually made this in my band by ourselves, and we decided that it would probably spice up the piece a little bit more and bring some new sounds into it. So we actually did make this on our own, but it is still a type of percussion instrument. So if you do want to set up a percussion ensemble with your families and friends, you can do this. It is effective. Now I do have these mallets. I didn't want to use them on the cymbal because they're not really meant to be used on the cymbal, and these are basically electric magnets, and they have they glow up, but unfortunately they do not have battery at the time. I don't think so. And they basically have rubber tips, so rubber does sound much more different than yarn or wood. So if you want to experiment with the different types of mallets, you can, if in case you have like a piece of yarn at home that you can wrap around a pencil or something, you can get creative with it. So yeah, that is what I wanted to show you. And I do have one last percussion instrument before we move on, and you can see a little bit of it in the camera. It is actually wind chimes. So I will try to bring that better into focus, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm back at a different angle. So I know you can't see all of it, but this is what a wind chime looks like. I'll try bringing it up so you can see a little bit more of it. So yeah, each of these pipes make a different type of sound, these typically being higher and then these being sort of lower. So I'll try to give all of these a sort of stroke, and yeah, let's do that. I'll try playing the best I can from behind, but here we go. I'll play it again in case you didn't hear it. So yeah, those are the wind chimes. The band director will never ask you to play specific notes on this. Like, they're not going to ask you to just hit one of these, but they're usually played all at once. So you just usually go either from here to here or here to here. I'll try playing it from lower to higher just so you guys can hear it. I'll play it again in case it didn't go through. So yeah, that is what it sounds like. And I think that this is actually one of the most fun instruments that a percussionist can play. So if you are interested in playing the wind chimes, you might want to sign up for percussion because they get to play these all the time. And they are so useful when playing different types of band pieces. Some band pieces sound really nostalgic and really sort of mysterious sometimes, so this works really, really well. And now I will get into the purpose of this video, and I will start showing you how to make a shaker. So again, we'll see you in a bit. Hey guys, so it was getting a little bit dark outside and I decided to turn on the lights. So now we are going to get started on the shakers, and so I have this can of iced tea that I drank already. By the way, when you get your can, you want to make sure that it's not really dented. Mine is a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. But if you really do want an even sort of sound, you don't want it to be dented, and you want it to be as cylindrical as possible, so it makes like a really clear sound and there's no like bumps or dents in it. Oh, there we go. I think I undented it. So yeah, let's get started. At first, I think I'm going to tell you guys to take this little tab off. The thing is that a lot of the cans do have these tabs, and you don't want that when you're trying to make a shaker. So just twist it until it comes off, and hopefully this won't take too long. Yeah, here it is. just leave it on the side. And so now you just have like this clear hole and this cylindrical sort of can. So next, you just want to like cut off a few strips of duct tape just to match the width of your can. So I did that with one piece already, so hopefully it does not take too much time. And line it up with the bottom of your can. And hopefully, just so you know, duct tape is a little bit hard to work with, so you don't want to tangle it up a lot. And so if you need help, feel free to ask your parents or your friends, family members, anything. And just wrap it around pretty clearly and tightly around the can, so you can cover it up. Something like that. I will be back after I finish this entire thing because that will take a while. So once this entire thing is covered in duct tape, I will come back. Hey guys, so I am back with the finished product. I mean, it's not completely perfect, but you know, I think it's good enough to put in beads. Again, you can actually put in anything you want inside one of these shakers. It doesn't have to be beads, it just has to be a little, really tiny, and you need to have a lot of them. So you can use pebbles, you can use, you know, if you have little tiny seashells or Legos, you can also put those in. Anything really works, but just keep in mind that every item will sound different. So, you know, if I put in beads versus if I put in rocks, they'll both sound different. Rocks will sound a little bit sharper, harder, louder, whereas beads sound a little bit more dull, but it sounds much more majestic, sort of. Whereas rocks will sound a little bit hardcore. So anyways, I do have my beads inside this huge plastic bag, and I'll try getting them out. And for whatever you're gonna put inside, you want it to be at least 1/3 full, up to the can. So you just wanna put in. Oh, make sure these don't fall. But once you feel as though it's 1/3 in, that should probably be enough for the can to make a, oh my god, oops, to make a pretty good sound. I'll get some more because I think it's only 1/5 full right now. You can make it more than 1/3, so putting in more is better than putting in less. Because it'll just make much more sound if you put in more. I think it needs a little bit more too. Let's put in some more beads. Let's see. Okay, that should be enough. So after you are done with this, you want to cover the top up with a piece of tape, and I did have a piece of tape here somewhere. Here it is. Here. So you want to cover up the top of the can with a piece of tape just to make sure that nothing spills or none of the beads actually fall off. And make sure you do this, because if you end up shaking it before you put in the lid, it really will fall apart, and it might just fall down and you have to clean up everything, which would be very, very brutal. So this is what this can sounds like. And I don't know if you can tell, but I put way more in this one, so it sounds a little bit more together, I guess. It sounds lower pitched first of all, and it also sounds more together. Whereas this one, it sounds very high pitched, and it sounds almost like a rain stick. If you don't know what a rain stick is, it's basically this huge tube. It's a huge plant that they like hollowed out, and it's not a plant, it's more of like a stick which they hollowed out, and they put in cactus thorns inside to make this sort of rainy sounding instrument. So basically they'll turn it and it sounds like the rain is falling. It's a very cool instrument that only percussionists like to get to play. So if you do want to ever try that, maybe you can sign up for percussion. So I mean, it doesn't sound exactly the same, but there is some resemblance. It sounds better on the rain stick, but you know, it sounds almost the same. And I don't know if you noticed, but these both are so different sounding, but I used beads for this one and I used beads for this one. The only difference is that I used smaller beads for this, I used bigger beads for this one and smaller beads for this one. So it just sounds a lot different, and also obviously this one is much more close to being full than this one. So well, that's it. Hopefully you guys had fun making these cans. Maybe you can make a few more of them with different types of materials inside and show them to your friends, your family. You can encourage everyone you know to like maybe try making one of a different sound and then playing them together. Or like having a steady beat on this one and then making this one a different tune. So you can experiment with it. You can make a percussion ensemble again, you know. Have someone playing maybe a cardboard box with some pencils as mallets, or having all these shakers. There's a lot of ways you can improvise for percussion instruments that you can't really do for normal instruments. So you can even use pencils as mallets, and you can use a FedEx box as, you know, a drum, a snare drum, a bass drum. It's very creative what all the percussion instruments, you know, you can improvise with anything. So I genuinely think that percussion instruments are like one of the only instruments that you really can create and make by yourselves. Just like with the sand blocks that I showed you earlier, they were really fun to make, and you know, you could just do them by yourself. Whereas for a lot of woodwind instruments like clarinet or flute or saxophone, they're amazing instruments, but it's really hard to recreate that exact tone and that sound when you're alone, you know, at home, and you don't really have access to the instrument. So you know, you all can try experimenting with different things around your houses. If you find anything that you know, you can make by yourself, let me know. If you have any other ideas that you might want to share with the class or anything, you can let me know next session. But today is unfortunately the last day for percussion instruments, so that is pretty sad, but hopefully this encouraged you and motivated you to, you know, trying percussion out, or researching a little bit more about percussion instruments, or just playing around with it, you know. Hopefully that happened. But next class we are going to be talking about a different type of instrument, different kind of instrument, so it'll be totally different, but again, I hope it will be a new experience for you. So that is actually all for today. I shall see you next class. Thank you.